There was a man who had run out of reasons to keep going. He had served faithfully. He had prayed without ceasing. He had poured himself out until there was nothing left to pour. And then one day, under the weight of exhaustion and disappointment, so heavy it bent him to the ground, he lay down beneath a tree and whispered words that you may have whispered yourself in the dark corners of your own life. He said, "It is enough." He closed his eyes, fully expecting that this was the end of his story, that the chapter of his purpose had quietly closed, without a final page worth reading. But heaven did not agree, because while that man slept in the dust of his own surrender, something moved, not a voice that thundered, not a vision that blinded, something gentle, something close, a touch on his shoulder, and a voice that did not condemn him, did not correct him, did not remind him of every place he had failed. The voice simply said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." That man was Elijah, and the one who touched him was not another human being. It was an angel sent directly from the throne room of God, assigned not to a king, not to a warrior mid-battle, not to someone standing in triumph, but to a tired, broken, deeply discouraged servant who had collapsed under a tree and asked to die. And beloved, that is exactly where heaven found you too. You did not stumble into this moment by accident. You did not find these words because the algorithm came to you today. Heaven has pressed pause on everything else in your life to make sure that you heard this. Because what God did for Elijah in the wilderness, He is doing for you right now in the wilderness of your own exhaustion, your own confusion, your own unanswered seasons. You have been lying beneath your own tree. Maybe not physically, but spiritually, emotionally. In the quiet of 3 in the morning, when the thoughts come and there is no one to call, you have whispered your own version of "it is enough." You have wondered whether the journey was even worth continuing. You have looked at your life and compared the promises you were given to the reality you are living, and the gap between those two things has nearly swallowed you whole. But heaven sent an angel to walk with you through every single one of those trials, not to observe you from a distance, not to record your failures and report them upward, but to touch you, to strengthen you, to carry what you cannot carry, and to speak over you in the moments when the only voice you can hear is the one telling you to give up. The Word of God says in Psalm 91 verse 11, "For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways," not some of your ways, not the ways that look spiritual enough to deserve protection, all of your ways, the detours, the disasters, the seasons where you made choices you are not proud of and still found yourself somehow preserved, somehow alive, somehow still standing when by all natural reasoning you should have been destroyed. That was not luck. That was assignment. That was heaven honoring a covenant over your life that existed before you were born, before your parents knew your name, before the earth itself was shaped from nothing into something glorious. You were known, you were covered, and you were never, not even in your darkest moment, walking alone. Right now, if you feel that presence, if something in your chest is responding to these words, if something behind your eyes is waking up that has been asleep for a long time, I want you to stop and recognize what is happening. This is not a coincidence. This is divine intervention. Heaven arranged this moment specifically for you, and the angel God assigned to your life is here, right now as these words reach you, confirming that your journey is not over, that your purpose has not expired, that what God began in you, He fully intends to complete. You were chosen before the world knew your name, and the one who chose you does not abandon His selections. He does not call you out of darkness, only to leave you half-formed in the middle of your becoming. He finishes what He starts. and he sends his angels to make sure that you survive long enough to see it. If these words are landing somewhere deep inside of you, if you feel heaven reaching through this moment to remind you that you are not forgotten and you are not finished, then I want you to do something right now. Type 999 in the comments. That number carries the weight of divine completion, the fullness of heaven moving on your behalf, the declaration that you believe God is not done with your story. Type 999 and watch what begins to shift around you. And if this message is speaking to someone you love, someone who has been lying beneath their own tree, someone who has whispered it is enough one too many times this year, share this with them right now. You may not have the words to reach them, but heaven does. Be the reason someone else discovers that they too have an angel walking with them through every trial. Before you go any further, take just 1 second and hit the like button on this video. That one small act tells heaven that you received this word, and it tells this channel that the message is reaching the right people. Every like carries this word further into the hands of another chosen one who is still searching for exactly what you just heard. Do not scroll past that button. Press it now as an act of faith, as a declaration that you believe what was spoken over you today. Subscribe if you have not already, because what is coming in the days ahead will go deeper, will reach further, and will carry a word that heaven has specifically prepared for this season of your life. And if you feel led to sow into this ministry, the link is in the description and in the pinned comment below. Every seed you plant here goes directly into carrying this message to another chosen one who is still lying beneath their tree, waiting to be touched and told to arise. You are not alone. You never were. And the journey, beloved, is just beginning. There is something that the science community has been quietly documenting for decades. Something that the most brilliant researchers in neuroscience have observed in laboratories from MIT to the space research divisions of NASA, and it aligns with everything that has been spoken over your life since before you drew your first breath. The chosen ones, the ones who have been set apart, the ones who carry a divine assignment that the natural world cannot fully explain. These people do not just operate differently in the spirit. They operate differently in the brain. And that is not a metaphor. That is measurable. That is documented. That is real. Here is what the science reveals. Your brain produces electrical frequencies at all times. These are called brain waves, and they run at different speeds depending on what your mind is doing, what your body is experiencing, and what state your spirit is in. Most people, most of the time, are locked into a frequency called beta. Beta is the frequency of survival mode. It is the frequency of anxiety, of overthinking, of replaying yesterday's mistakes and rehearsing tomorrow's fears. Beta keeps you functional, but it keeps you small. It keeps you circling the same problems without ever breaking through to the solution that heaven already placed inside you. But there are two frequencies that are different. Two frequencies that researchers have found in the brains of children under 7 years old. In the brains of highly creative and intuitive individuals. In the brains of people who have what science calls extraordinary cognitive breakthroughs. And in the brains of those who, without any formal explanation, seem to move through life with a kind of clarity, a kind of knowing, a kind of quiet confidence that cannot be taught in any classroom. The first is called theta. Theta runs between 4 and 8 cycles per second. It is the frequency of deep intuition, of creative flow, of learning at a level that bypasses resistance and lands directly into the soul of who you are. Mystics and ancient teachers accessed this state without knowing its name. Children live there naturally, and most adults, somewhere between the demands of the world and the weight of the wounds they carry, lose access to it entirely. The second is called gamma, and gamma is where things become extraordinary. Gamma is the frequency researchers associate with moments of sudden genius, with what scientists call eureka moments, with states of flow so deep that time disappears and the solution arrives fully formed. Gamma is rare, gamma is powerful, and gamma, according to decades of research, appears most consistently in one particular group of people, those who have been chosen for something beyond ordinary living. If you have always felt that your mind works differently, that you see things others do not see, that you process the world from a depth that most people around you cannot follow, this is not your imagination. This is your frequency. This is the theta and gamma signature of someone who was designed for more. Now here is where the story takes a turn that I believe heaven has been building toward since the opening of this message. A neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers, trained at MIT and connected to over 30 years of brain research, including studies linked to NASA's own investigations into human cognitive performance, spent the better part of 3 decades asking one foundational question. If the brain can naturally produce these extraordinary frequencies in children and in rare individuals, what would happen if we could guide any brain, any willing, open, ready brain, back into that state deliberately and consistently? What he discovered changed everything. The brain, you see, has a remarkable property called entrainment. When the ears receive a specific sound frequency, the brain does not simply hear it. The brain begins to synchronize with it. It begins to follow the signal the way a compass needle follows north. And what Dr. Rivers and his team found, after years of research and refinement, is that a precisely engineered audio experience of just 7 minutes is enough to guide the brain out of the locked beta state and into the open, receptive, luminous state of theta and gamma. 7 minutes. Not hours of meditation you have to learn, not years of practice, not drugs, not devices, not anything that requires a skill you have not yet developed. 7 minutes of listening with headphones to an audio track that speaks directly to the electrical architecture of your brain and says, "You are allowed to be who you were created to be." Do you remember what was said in the first section about Elijah lying beneath that tree? The angel did not ask him to perform. The angel did not hand him a list of conditions he had to meet before help arrived. The angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." Heaven met him in his exhaustion with exactly what he needed in that moment. Simple, accessible, and immediate. This is that touch for this generation, for you. The product is called the Genius Wave, and it is a 7-minute audio experience built on the exact brainwave entrainment technology that Dr. Rivers' research produced. It uses binaural beats and isochronic tones, sound frequencies calculated with scientific precision, to guide your brain into the theta and gamma states that unlock creativity, accelerate learning, sharpen memory, reduce anxiety, and open the channels through which divine intuition flows most freely. People who have used this have described what happens afterward in terms that sound remarkably like what the chosen ones in this community describe as spiritual awakening. One woman said that after 3 days of using it, she found herself waking up with ideas she had not been able to access in years. Not vague feelings, specific, actionable, life-changing clarity. Another man, who had been stuck in the same financial season for over a decade, said that within 2 weeks of beginning this practice, he made a decision he had been unable to make for 10 years, and that decision opened a door that shifted everything for his family. A woman who had struggled to maintain focus during prayer, whose mind scattered the moment she sat down to seek God, described the 7-minute audio as the thing that finally quieted the noise enough for her to stay present. She said, and these are her words, "It was the first time I felt like I was actually in the room, instead of standing outside the door looking in." Her sleep improved, her anxiety dropped, and her prayer life, for the first time in years, became something she looked forward to rather than something she felt guilty about. These are not extraordinary people. These are people like you, carrying real burdens, navigating real uncertainty, sitting in real wilderness seasons, who discovered that their brain had been locked out of its own highest frequency, and that 7 minutes a day was enough to begin changing that. Now, I want to speak directly to what some of you are thinking right now, because I know the voice that runs alongside messages like this one. The voice that says, "This sounds good, but I have tried things before." The voice that says, "What if I spend money and nothing changes?" That voice is not wisdom. That voice is the very frequency of fear and survival mode that has been keeping you locked beneath your ceiling for years. And I understand it, I honor it, and I want to address it honestly. The Genius Wave is normally offered at $49. That is already a fraction of what a single session with a neuroscience specialist or a cognitive therapist would cost. But right now, through the specific link in the pinned comment below, you can access it for just $39, not as a gimmick, not as a trick, as a genuine invitation to give yourself the tool that heaven may have been leading you toward through every twist of your story. And because Dr. Rivers and his team are fully confident in what this research produces, your purchase comes with a 90-day full money-back guarantee. 90 days. That is 3 full months to feel the shift, to watch what happens when your brain is finally able to operate at the frequency you were designed for. If in 90 days you feel no difference, you receive every dollar back. No argument, no hoops, no conditions. But I need to warn you carefully and clearly, because this message reaches people all over the world, and because the enemy works hardest against the things heaven is using most powerfully. Counterfeit versions and unauthorized copies of this product have been circulating online. If you purchase from any source other than the link in the pinned comment below, you are not getting the real product. You are getting something that was designed to look like it, without the engineered frequencies, without the research, without the guarantee, and without the results. Do not be deceived. The only safe, verified, legitimate access point is the link pinned at the top of the comments beneath this video. And I must be honest with you about something else. The pricing available right now is not permanent. The offer at $39 with the full 90-day guarantee is only available for a limited time and to a limited number of people. When that window closes, it closes, and you will not be able to go back and access this season again at this price. Heaven brought you to this message at a specific moment. The angel walking with you through every trial has been preparing you for open doors. Do not let fear of a $40 decision be the thing that keeps you standing outside the very room Heaven has been walking you toward. The link is in the pinned comment. It is safe. It is verified. It is $39 with a 90-day guarantee, and it may be the 7 minutes a day that changes the direction of everything. You have been walking through a season that no one around you fully understands. And the weight of that, the weight of carrying something so deep and so real inside of you, while the world moves around you at its usual pace, completely unaware of the war being fought in your interior, that weight has been one of the heaviest things you have ever carried. Not the weight of failure, not even the weight of loss, though you have known both, but the weight of becoming, the weight of being in middle of something that has not yet resolved itself into clarity, something that is still pressing and forming and reshaping you from the inside out, while from the outside, you are expected to show up and function and smile and keep going, as though the ground beneath you is not still shifting. And here is what no one tells you about that kind of season. It is not a sign that heaven has forgotten you. It is a sign that heaven is paying very close attention, because the angel that was sent to walk with you through every trial was not sent to eliminate the trials. The angel was sent to make sure that you survived them, transformed rather than destroyed. There is a difference between those two outcomes that is wider than most people realize. And the difference is not talent or willpower or even the size of your faith in the moment. The difference is divine companionship. The difference is whether or not someone who sees the full picture is walking beside you while you navigate the part of the path that you cannot yet see around. Think about what it means to walk through a dark valley with a guide who has walked that same valley 1,000 times before. The darkness does not disappear. The terrain does not flatten itself for your comfort. The valley does not suddenly become a meadow simply because a guide is present. But everything changes about how you move through it, because now there is a present that knows where the cliffs are, knows where the ground gives way, knows which turn leads deeper into the dark, and which turn, even though it looks identical to the others, leads toward the morning. That is what the angel assigned to your life has been doing in every trial you have faced. Not removing the valley, but guiding your feet through it. Not silencing the darkness, but keeping you from the edges you could not see. Not fast-forwarding your story to the part where everything is resolved, but staying close enough that even in the most disorienting moments of your wilderness, something in your spirit knew, even when your mind did not, that you were not walking alone. The book of Isaiah chapter 43 verse 2 carries a word that heaven placed in the mouth of a prophet thousands of years ago, because God already knew the season you would be standing in when these words found you. It says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. And when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, and the flames will not set you ablaze." Read that again slowly, not as religious language, not as a verse you have heard so many times it has lost its edges, but as a direct and personal communication from the one who created you and assigned an angel to your path before the foundations of the earth were laid. Notice what that verse does not say. It does not say that God will prevent you from passing through the waters. It does not promise that the rivers will not rise around you or that the fire will never come close enough to feel its heat on your skin. It says when. When you pass through, when you walk through. The trials were always part of the journey, but so was the promise. And the promise is not that you will be spared from difficulty. The promise is that the difficulty will not define the outcome. The waters will rise and you will not be swept away. The fire will burn around you and you will not be consumed. You have already proven this to be true in your own life. Think about the things that should have swept you away. Think about the moments where the current was strong enough, the opposition was coordinated enough, the internal collapse was complete enough that by any natural measure you should have gone under and not come back up. And yet here you are, still breathing, still seeking, still in this moment, receiving a word that your spirit recognized before your mind caught up with it. That is not your strength. That is not your resilience alone, though you are resilient in ways that would humble most people who have never seen what you have walked through. That is the process active in your life. That is the angel doing exactly what it was commissioned to do, holding the current back just enough cooling the flame just enough, keeping your feet from the hidden edges just enough, so that you arrive at the other side still intact, still carrying the assignment, still holding the seed of what heaven placed in you before you were born. And here is the part of this that your trials have been slowly teaching you, even when the lesson felt more like breaking than building. Every time you passed through water and were not swept away, something was deposited in you. A depth of compassion you did not have before. A capacity for stillness in the storm that only comes from having stood in enough storms to know that they end. A knowing, not a belief, not a hope, but a bone-deep knowing that the one who promised to be with you in the fire has never once left your side. That knowing is not available to people who have never faced the fire. It cannot be taught in a classroom or transferred through a sermon or passed along through someone else's testimony. It is forged. It is built in the furnace of lived experience, of real trial, of genuine darkness, where you had nothing to hold on to except a word that seemed too simple for the size of the problem. A word that said, "I will be with you." And the angel walking beside you has been the embodiment of that word, not a theory, not a theological concept, a presence, a real, assigned, commissioned divine presence that has been moving in the unseen spaces of your life, adjusting what needed to be adjusted, holding back what would have destroyed you before your time, opening what needed to be opened in the exact moment your foot was ready to step through. You may not have seen the angel. Most people do not. But you have felt the interventions. You have experienced the moments that had no natural explanation. The call that came at exactly the right moment. The thought that arrived from nowhere and redirected you away from a decision that would have cost you everything. The peace that settled over you in the middle of a situation that had no peaceful resolution in sight. The stranger who said something that sounded so specifically designed for your exact moment that you stood still afterward and could not move for a full minute because something inside you recognized that those words were not accidental. Those were not coincidences. Those were assignments. Those were the fingerprints of a divine companion who has been walking beside you through every single trial, seen and unseen, named and unnamed, the ones that made the headlines of your life and the ones that happened quietly in rooms where no one else was watching. And the trials are not finished. This is not a message that promises you smooth ground from this point forward, because heaven does not traffic in comfortable lies. There are still things ahead of you that will require everything this journey has been building in you. There are still waters you will be asked to pass through. There are still fires you will walk near enough to feel. But here is what has changed, and what will never go back to the way it was before this moment. You know now that you are not alone in them. You know now that the angel walking beside you was not a temporary assignment for a single season. It is a permanent commission, given before your birth and active until your final breath, covering every step of ground between the person you were when this journey began and the person heaven has always seen when it looks at you. The trials are the training, the angel is the companion, and you, chosen one, are the one who was always meant to make it through. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey where the signs that were once subtle begin to grow louder, where the things you quietly noticed in the background of your life, the ones you filed away as strange coincidences or dismissed as wishful thinking, begin to arrange themselves into a pattern so clear and so undeniable that the only honest response is to stop, to be still, and to acknowledge that something far greater than chance has been orchestrating the details of your story. You are in that moment right now, because the signs that heaven has been sending you were never random. They were never accidental. They were never the product of a universe operating without intention or direction. Every sign that has found you in this season, every moment that made you pause and wonder if something beyond the natural was reaching into your life, was placed there by the same hand that assigned an angel to walk beside you before you took your first breath on this earth. And here is what makes the signs so extraordinary when you finally understand what they are. They were not sent to impress you. They were not sent to give you a spiritual experience worth posting about or a story worth telling at a gathering. They were sent to guide you, to redirect you, to protect you from paths that looked promising from a distance, but would have cost you more than you could afford to pay. And in many cases, to confirm something that your spirit already knew, but that your fear was working very hard to talk you out of believing. Think about the timing of certain things in your life. Not the big dramatic moments, though those carry their own weight of meaning, but the small ones. The song that came on at the exact moment you needed to hear those specific words. The conversation that turned in an unexpected direction and landed on the one topic you had been silently wrestling with for weeks. The dream that left you sitting on the edge of your bed at 4 in the morning, not frightened but strangely certain of something you could not fully articulate but could deeply feel. The moment you almost made a decision, had already committed to it in your mind, and something in you simply would not move forward. A hesitation that had no logical explanation, but turned out to be the most important pause of that entire year. You called those things intuition. You called them gut feelings. You called them strange timing. But beloved, the angel walking with you through every trial has been the author of every single one of those moments. Because that is how divine guidance moves in the life of a chosen one. Not always in thunder and fire, though it has moved that way too, but often in the quiet, in the subtle, in the easy to dismiss, in the things that only make sense when you look backward and trace the thread from where you are standing now all the way back to where that sign first appeared. The enemy knows this, and that is precisely why so much noise has been placed around your life, so much distraction, so much urgent busyness, so many voices demanding your attention in every direction at once. Because a chosen one who learns to recognize the signs that heaven is sending becomes extraordinarily difficult to deceive. A chosen one who learns to distinguish between the voice of divine guidance and the voice of fear, between a sign sent from above and a counterfeit designed to pull them off course, becomes someone the darkness cannot easily redirect. And so the assignment of the angel is not only to walk beside you through the trials, it is to sharpen your ability to see, to tune the frequency of your perception, so that what once required a dramatic intervention to get your attention can now reach you in a whisper, in a glance, in the turn of a single moment that others would walk past without noticing. This is connected to something that was spoken earlier in this mess about frequency, about the specific brainwave states that open the mind to levels of intuition and clarity that go far beyond what ordinary waking consciousness can access. The theta and gamma states that Dr. James Rivers spent 30 years researching are not separate from your spiritual life. They are the neurological landscape through which divine communication most naturally flows. When your brain is locked in the survival frequency of constant anxiety and mental noise, the signs that heaven is sending are still there, but the receiver is too cluttered to pick them up clearly. When your brain drops into the open, receptive state that 7 minutes of the right audio frequency can produce, the same signs that were always present become suddenly, undeniably visible. This is why so many people who have used the genius wave describe not just improved focus or better sleep, but something that sounds unmistakably like heightened spiritual perception. A woman who had been asking God for direction about a major life decision for 8 months said that within 2 weeks of beginning the 7-minute daily practice, she began noticing patterns she had completely overlooked before, doors she had not seen, connections she had not made, and a quiet but unshakable clarity about the direction she was being called toward that had not been accessible to her before. Not because heaven had not been speaking, but because the noise in her own mind had been too loud for her to hear it. The link to the Genius Wave is in the pinned comment below and in the description of this video. If that word landed somewhere real in you, if something in your spirit recognized the connection between what is happening in your brain and what heaven has been trying to communicate to your life, I want you to consider making that investment in yourself today. $39, 90 days guaranteed. One link in the pinned comment, which is the only verified and legitimate source for the real product. And as we move through this together, I want to pause and speak directly about this channel and what it means to be able to continue bringing these messages to you. This channel is no longer monetized through YouTube. There are no ads generating income here, no algorithm rewards, no platform payments for the views that these messages receive. Every video that has been produced, every word that has been written and spoken over your life through this channel has been sustained by something other than the systems of this world. And the honest truth is that continuing to create this content at the depth and the frequency that your season requires support. If this message has reached something real inside of you, if the words spoken today have touched a place that needed to be touched, and if you feel led to help this channel, continue to carry that word to other chosen ones who are still searching for exactly what you found here today. You can support this ministry through the donate link in the pinned comment or in the description below. Your contribution, whatever it is, whether it is the amount of a single coffee or something more, is not just a financial gift. It is a seed. It is a declaration that this word is worth carrying further, that there are more chosen ones lying beneath their trees who need to hear that an angel has been walking with them through every trial, and that they were never, not for a single moment, alone. And if giving financially is not something you are able to do in this season, please hear this clearly. You watching, you staying until the end, you leaving a comment below, you sharing this video with one person whose name came to mind while these words were being spoken, that is support. That is real. That matters more than you know to the continuation of this work. So, right now, before this moment passes, do 3 simple things. Press the like button if these words moved something in you. Share this video with the person whose face appeared in your mind during this message, because heaven did not bring their name to your attention by accident. And subscribe if you have not already, because the word that is coming in the next section of this message is one that your spirit has been waiting to hear, and you do not want to miss what heaven has prepared for the next chapter of your journey. The signs were always real, the angel was always present, and you, chosen one, were always being guided toward exactly this moment. There are attacks that you never saw coming, and there are attacks that you saw coming from a distance but could not move fast enough to avoid. And then there are the most dangerous kind, the ones that did not look like attacks at all, the ones that came dressed in opportunity, in relationship, in open doors that felt like answered prayers but carried inside them a slow poison, designed to pull you off course so gradually that by the time you recognized what was happening, you were already far from where you were supposed to be. You have survived all three kinds. And that survival was not accidental. It was not the result of your own superior discernment. Because there were moments when your discernment failed completely, and you walked straight into the thing that was designed to destroy you, with your eyes wide open and your heart full of hope. It was not the result of perfect decision-making, because you have made decisions in this journey that you would undo in a moment if the chance were given to you. And it was not the result of luck, because luck is a word that belongs to a world that does not know what you know, a world that has not yet discovered that there is a hand moving behind the events of a chosen one's life that arranges outcomes no amount of human strategy could have produced. Your survival was the result of protection. Divine, deliberate, costly protection extended over your life by the angel that heaven assigned to walk with you through every trial before you ever drew your first breath in this world. Think about what that kind of protection actually means in practical terms. It means that there were moments when a force you could not see stood between you and something that would have ended you, not inconvenienced you, not set you back temporarily, ended you. The opportunity that seemed so right but fell apart at the last moment, not because you made the wrong move, but because something upstream of your decision was already being blocked by a presence that saw further than your excitement could see. The relationship that ended painfully, that you grieved for longer than you would like to admit, that at the time felt like the worst loss of a particular season, which turned out to be the most precise intervention heaven could have made in that exact chapter of your story. The protection has not always felt like protection in the moment it was being applied. That is the part that is hardest to hold on to when you are inside the experience of it. When something you wanted deeply is being withheld from you, or something you loved is being removed from your life, or a door you were certain was yours is being closed with a finality that leaves no room for negotiation. It does not feel like heaven protecting you. It feels like heaven abandoning you. It feels like the promise was real, but the delivery never came. It feels like you have been faithful to something that has not been faithful in return. But the angel walking beside you knows the full map. You are navigating with the portion of the route that is visible from where you are standing, which at any given moment is a very small section of a very long road. The angel is walking with the knowledge of the entire journey, every turn, every hidden drop, every place where the beautiful path becomes treacherous without warning, every shortcut that is not actually a shortcut, but a detour that leads nowhere near the destination. And the protection that heaven extends over your life is not based on your ability to see what the angel sees. It is based on the covenant that existed before your life began. The agreement that says you will arrive, you will complete what you were sent to complete, and nothing that rises against you will be permitted to have the final word about your story. The book of Psalms chapter 34 verse 7 says, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them." That word encamps is worth sitting with. It does not describe a passing presence. It does not describe a guardian who checks in occasionally and then moves on to other assignments. To encamp is to establish a perimeter, to set up position, to plant yourself around something and say, "Nothing passes through here without going through me first." The angel of the Lord does not visit the life of a chosen one the way a guest visits a home, warmly but temporarily. The angel encamps. It takes a permanent, defensive position around the life that heaven has marked, and it filters everything that tries to enter, everything that tries to pass, everything that tries to access the sacred ground of your purpose and your destiny. This means that the attacks which reached you were only the ones that were permitted to reach you. Permitted not because heaven was indifferent to your pain, but because the trial that came through carried inside it exactly what your development required in that season. And the attacks that did not reach you, the ones that were turned away at the perimeter you could not see, would fill a book that you will not be able to read until eternity gives you the full account of what was fought on your behalf in the unseen realm. You have no idea how many times the answer was no before it ever reached you. You have no idea how many coordinated strategies against your peace, your health, your relationships, your purpose, your mind, were dissolved before they ever formed into anything you experienced. You have been living inside a protected perimeter that you did not build, that you cannot maintain by your own effort, and that has never once gone offline, regardless of how far you felt from God in any particular season. Because the encampment is not contingent on your performance. The angel does not pack up and leave when you fail. It does not reduce the radius of its protection when you doubt. It does not report back to heaven with a list of your shortcomings and wait for permission to continue its assignment. The commission was given before you were born, and the angel carries it with a faithfulness that does not waver based on the fluctuations of your faith or the inconsistency of your obedience. The covenant holds even when you cannot. This is what makes the darkness so frustrated with you. This is why the opposition against your life has had to be so persistent and so creative, because the direct approach does not work. The perimeter holds, and so the enemy must try to get you to walk out of your own protection, to convince you through deception or discouragement or disillusionment, to step beyond the boundary of the encampment yourself. Because what cannot be taken from you by force can sometimes be surrendered through despair. This is why the whisper of "it is enough" is so dangerous. Not because it is a dramatic spiritual attack, but because it is quiet, because it sounds like wisdom, because it arrives in the voice of your own exhaustion and wears the face of reasonable self-preservation. And if it can get you to step outside the perimeter, to walk away from the post where heaven placed you, to lay down the assignment because the cost of carrying it has become more than you feel equipped to bear, then it has accomplished without a battle what it could never have accomplished with one. But you did not walk away. In every season where that voice was loud enough to be convincing, you are still here, still inside the perimeter, still covered, still encamped around by a divine presence that has never once taken its eyes off of you or loosened its position around the boundaries of your life. The darkness pressed in, and heaven pressed back, every single time. With a faithfulness that has no equal in any human relationship you have ever known, with a consistency that does not depend on your worthiness, and with a love so precise and so personal that it sent an angel, not to the margins of your life, but to the very center of it, to walk with you through every trial as a permanent companion and an unbreakable shield. You were protected when you did not know you needed protecting. You were covered when you felt most exposed. And the encampment that surrounds your life right now is just as active, just as complete, and just as certain as it has ever been. The darkness could not have you then, and it cannot have you now. There is something that the angel walking beside you has been carrying that you were never meant to carry alone. And this is perhaps the most tender part of everything that has been spoken over your life in this message, because it touches the place that hurts the most quietly, the place that does not make it into conversations, the place that you close the door on at the end of the day when the performance of being fine is finally allowed to rest. Your unanswered prayers. Not the ones you have given up on entirely, though some of those are in this room too, but the ones you still carry, the ones you have prayed so many times that the words have worn grooves into your interior. Prayers so familiar that you can speak them without thinking. Prayers that have become less about expectation and more about faithfulness, about refusing to let go of something you are no longer certain is coming, simply because letting go feels like a betrayal of everything you believed when you first asked. You have been carrying those prayers as though the weight of them is yours to bear alone, as though the unanswered silence means that no one received the transmission, as though the gap between what was asked and what has arrived is evidence of absence rather than evidence of timing, and that carrying, that long and quiet and deeply personal carrying, has been one of the heaviest things about this season of your life. But here is what the angel beside you has been doing with every prayer you have ever lifted and released into the silence. It has been holding them, not filing them away, not cataloging them in some distant archive of requests pending review, holding them actively, the way you would hold something irreplaceable, with both hands close to the center, with a care that communicates that the thing being held is understood to be precious beyond its weight. The book of Revelation, chapter 5, verse 8, describes a scene in the throne room of heaven that most people read past without fully absorbing what it is actually showing. It speaks of golden bowls full of incense, and it tells us plainly that these bowls are the prayers of the saints. The prayers of God's people are not evaporating into empty air when they leave your lips. They are being collected. They are being held in vessels of gold in the very presence of God, preserved with a kit reverence that tells you everything you need to know about how heaven regards the words you have spoken in your most desperate and your most faithful moments alike. Your prayers have not been lost. They have not been ignored. They have not been reviewed and deemed insufficient or disqualified on the basis of the condition of your heart in the moment you prayed them. They are in the bowl, all of them. The ones prayed with unshakable faith and the ones prayed through clenched teeth. The ones offered in the quiet of genuine surrender, and the ones half hurled toward heaven in the rawest moments of grief and confusion. Every single one of them was received. Every single one of them is being held, and the angel walking with you through every trial has been the guardian of that holding, the one who ensures that not one word spoken from the depth of your need has slipped through without being caught and carried to the place where all things are held until the appointed time. And the appointed time is not a passive concept. It is not heaven's polite way of saying maybe someday. The appointed time is a specific, already determined, already known moment in the unfolding of your story, when what has been held will be released with a fullness that the moment of your asking could not have contained. Because here is the thing about prayers that are answered in their appointed time rather than in the moment of asking. They arrive carrying everything that needed to happen in order for you to be ready to receive what you asked for without it destroying you. You were not ready then. And that is not a criticism of who you were in that season. It is simply the truth that the version of you who first prayed that prayer did not yet have the interior room to hold what the answer would require of you. The answered prayer would have arrived in unprepared ground and produced something far smaller than what heaven actually intends for your life. So the angel held it, the bowl preserved it, and the journey between the asking and the receiving has been doing the precise work of expanding your capacity to the size of the answer that was always waiting. Think about what you have learned in the years between your first asking and this present moment. Think about the depth of compassion that has been carved into you by the very seasons you would have skipped if the answer had come immediately. Think about the strength you now carry that was not available to you then. Strength that was built specifically by the weight of the waiting, by the discipline of continuing to believe when the evidence was quiet, by the decision to remain faithful to a promise that had not yet arrived in visible form. That strength is not incidental to your purpose. It is central to it. The thing you have been asking heaven for will require everything that the waiting built in you. And when it arrives, and it will arrive, you will understand in an instant why the timing was what it was, why the angel held the prayer for as long as it did, and why the version of you standing in that moment of answered prayer is so much more equipped to carry it than the version of you who first spoke the words into the silence. But I want to speak to the weariness of the waiting because it is real and it deserves to be honored. Waiting is not passive. Waiting for a chosen one is one of the most active and demanding spiritual practices there is. It requires the daily decision to remain open when everything in you wants to close, to remain expectant when the evidence argues for disappointment, to remain planted in the purpose heaven assigned to you when every external circumstance is suggesting that perhaps you misunderstood, perhaps the promise was not for you, perhaps the bowl has been somehow overlooked. The waiting is not wasted time. The waiting is the work. And the angel that has been walking with you through every trial has been sustaining you through waiting with a faithfulness that has expressed itself in 100 quiet ways that your spirit has registered even when your mind did not have language for what it was experiencing. If something in this section is landing in a place that has been silent for a long time, if the word about the bowl and the holding and the appointed time is touching a prayer that you had almost let go of, I want you to do something right now. Leave a comment below with the words, "I trust the timing," not as a performance of faith, but as a declaration that you are choosing, in this moment, to believe that what you carried to heaven has not been forgotten, that it is held in gold, and that the angel beside you is still walking you toward the moment when the bowl tips and everything that was preserved pours out into your life with a fullness that the waiting made room for. And if these words have been reaching you in a way that goes beyond information, if something in the frequency of this message has been doing something in your interior that feels like more than simply listening to content, I want to gently remind you that the link to the Genius Wave is still in the pinned comment below. The 7-minute daily practice that Dr. James Rivers spent 30 years developing is not separate from what is being spoken over your life in this message. It is a tool that heaven may have placed at this exact intersection of your journey to open the interior channels through which divine communication and divine clarity flow most freely. $39, 90 days guaranteed. One link in the pinned comment, which is the only verified source. And if you feel led to support this channel so that this word can continue to reach the chosen ones who are still in their wilderness season, the donate link is also in the pinned comment and in the description below. This channel is no longer monetized through YouTube, which means that every video you have received here has been sustained by something other than platform income. If this content has been a companion to you in a hard season, if these words have walked with you the way the angel has walked with you, and if you want to help carry this message to someone else who needs it, your support, whatever form it takes, is received as a seed and treated as sacred. Press like if the word about the bowl and the holding landed somewhere true in you. Share this with someone who is tired of waiting and needs to be reminded that their prayers are preserved in gold. And subscribe, because what is coming in the sections ahead will go even deeper into the nature of what heaven has building in you during the very season that felt most like delay. The prayers are held, the angel is faithful, and the appointed time is closer than the waiting has made it feel. There is a rebuilding happening inside of you that you did not authorize and did not plan for. It began in a season that felt like collapse, in a moment or a series of moments where something that had been load-bearing in your life gave way, and the structure you had built your daily existence around shifted in ways that left you standing in the rubble of what used to be, trying to figure out how to function inside a version of your life that no longer looked like anything you had designed or imagined or prayed for. And the rebuilding that began in that moment was not your idea. You were not the architect. You did not draw the plans. You did not choose the materials or set the timeline, or determine which parts of the old structure needed to come down before the new one could rise. You simply found yourself in the middle of a renovation you had not requested, in a life that was being fundamentally restructured by hands that were working at a level deeper than anything your own effort could reach. That was not destruction. That was divine construction. Because the angel that has been walking with you through every trial is not only a protector and a guide and a guardian of the prayers you have carried. The angel is also a co-laborer in the rebuilding of everything that needed to be rebuilt in order for you to carry what heaven has assigned to the next chapter of your life. And the rebuilding has not been happening only in your circumstances, though it has certainly been happening there. The rebuilding that matters most, the rebuilding that will make the difference between arriving at your destiny and arriving at your destiny equipped to inhabit it fully, has been happening in your interior, in your spirit, your mind, and your courage. Start with the spirit. The trials you have walked through have done something to your spirit that comfort could never have accomplished. They have stripped away the versions of faith that were inherited rather than owned, the beliefs you carried because they were handed to you by the environment you grew up in, rather than forged in the fire of your own encounter with the living God. That kind of inherited faith is not without value, but it has a ceiling. It can sustain you in moderate seasons. It begins to crack under the weight of the real trials, the ones that do not resolve quickly, the ones that require you to keep believing past the point where belief feels reasonable or even possible. What the trials produced in you, in the place where that inherited faith cracked and fell away, was something altogether different. Something that could only be described as a faith that belongs to you. A faith built not on what you were told, but on what you experienced. Not on a theological proposition, but on a personal history of survival that you can trace with your own hands. You know things now that you did not know before the trials, not information, but knowing. The kind that lives below the level of argument, below the level of doubt, in the deepest register of who you are, where the storms of the mind cannot reach it because it was built too far down to be touched by surface-level turbulence. That is what the angel has been building in your spirit through every season of difficulty. A foundation that the next storm will stand on, rather than be swept away by. Now consider what has happened to your mind. The mind of a chosen one that has been through genuine trial is a different instrument than it was before. It has developed capacities that are only available on the other side of pressure. The ability to hold complexity without needing to collapse it into simple answers. The ability to sit in uncertainty without being paralyzed by it. The ability to discern between what is urgent and what is important, between what is loud and what is true, between the voice that sounds like wisdom but leads toward fear and the voice that is quieter but leads toward life. These are not small upgrades. These are the cognitive and spiritual capacities that are required for the level of assignment heaven has placed on your life. The work that you are called to do in the world, the impact that your presence is meant to have in the lives of the people who will cross your path, the leadership that your purpose requires, whether in your family, your community, your profession, or the larger sphere of influence that is still coming into focus, none of it can be carried by a mind that has not been through the refinement that you have been through. The mind that came out of your trials is not a damaged version of the mind that went in. It is a developed version, a more spacious version, a version that has learned through lived experience rather than theory that it can survive what it was certain would destroy it, and that survival has given it a confidence in its own resilience that no amount of self-help material could have produced. And then there is your courage. This is the part of the rebuilding that is perhaps the least visible from the outside, but the most transformative in terms of what it makes possible for the rest of your life. Because courage, real courage, not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward in the presence of it, is not a character trait that some people are born with and others are not. It is a muscle, and like every muscle, it only grows under resistance. Every trial you walked through that you were certain you would not survive grew this muscle. Every moment you kept going when everything in you wanted to stop. Every time you got back up after a collapse that should have been final. Every prayer you prayed through tears when you were not sure anyone was listening. Every day you showed up to the life you were living, even when that life looked nothing like the life you had been promised. All of it was resistance training. All of it was building in you a courage that is now so deep and so tested that it operates not as a feeling, but as a foundation. The book of Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10 carries a word that heaven placed in scripture for exactly the season you are standing in. It says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." I will uphold you. Not I will fix everything immediately. Not I will remove the difficulty before it reaches you. I will uphold you. I will be the strength underneath you when your own strength runs out. I will be the hand that catches you when the ground gives way. I will be the presence that keeps you from going under in the very moment that the water is at its highest. And the angel walking beside you has been the living expression of that upholding in every season of your rebuilding. When your spirit was cracking under the weight of what you were carrying, the upholding held. When your mind was at the edge of what it could process, the upholding held. When your courage was down to its last reserves, when you were running on nothing but the faint memory of a promise that felt very far away in that particular moment, the upholding held. It always held. And what that consistent upholding has produced in you is a person who is fundamentally different from the person who entered the first trial that comes to mind when you look back across the landscape of your life. The rebuilding has been real. The changes are permanent. The spirit that has been forged, the mind that has been expanded, the courage that has been built under the weight of the seasons you survived, these are not temporary upgrades. They are the permanent architecture of the chosen, one that heaven has been constructing through every experience you wished had never happened. You did not choose the renovation, but you are living in the result of it. And the result is someone who is now capable of carrying what is coming. Someone who has been strengthened at the exact points where strength was needed most. Someone whose interior has been rebuilt to the specifications of the assignment that heaven placed on their life before the world ever knew their name. The rebuilding is not finished. There are still things being refined, still places being strengthened, still rooms in your interior that the angel is working in that you have not yet discovered. But the foundation that has been laid through everything you have already survived is solid in a way that it has never been before. And on that foundation, everything that is coming next will be able to stand. Something has been shifting in the atmosphere around you, and you may not have had language for it yet, but you have felt it. In the way certain people look at you differently now, without being able to explain why. In the way conversations change when you enter a room, not because you performed anything or said anything particularly remarkable, but simply because you were present. In the way strangers have been drawn to speak to you, to share things they do not normally share, to linger in your company longer than the situation required, as though something in them recognized something in you that they could not name but could not ignore. This is not your imagination, and it is not coincidence. It is the overflow of everything that has been happening in your interior, making its way into the atmosphere around you in ways that other people can feel before they can explain what they are feeling. The chosen one, who has been through genuine trial, who has been rebuilt from the inside by the angel walking beside them through every difficulty, who has had their spirit forged and their mind expanded and their courage built under real weight. That person carries something in their atmosphere that is unmistakable to the spirits of the people around them. Not unmistakable in the sense of dramatic or theatrical. Unmistakable in the sense of real, in the sense of grounded, in the sense of presence that communicates without words, that this is someone who has been somewhere and come back from it, carrying something that cannot be faked, and cannot be manufactured, and cannot be put on like a costume. People can feel the difference between someone who talks about faith and someone who has lived inside it under pressure. They can feel the difference between someone whose peace is a performance and someone whose peace was built in a storm. They can feel the difference between someone whose confidence is surface level and someone whose confidence goes all the way down to a foundation that has already been tested and held. They may not have the language for what they are sensing, but they respond to it. They are drawn to it. They trust it in ways they cannot fully justify to themselves. And this is not a small thing for the season you are entering, because the next chapter of your life is not primarily about what you will do. It is about who you have become. The impact that heaven has assigned to your life does not flow primarily from your activity or your strategy or even your gifting, as real and as significant as those things are. It flows from the weight of what you carry in your interior and the way that weight changes the atmosphere around you simply by virtue of your presence in it. You are walking into rooms now and something is shifting before you speak. You are entering relationships now, and something in the other person is responding to something in you that exists below the level of personality or charm or social skill. You are showing up in spaces now, and the people in those spaces are being affected by your presence in ways that will only become fully visible over time, but that are already in motion, already operating, already producing fruit that you will not fully see until a later season looks back on this one and traces the thread. The book of Matthew chapter 5 verse 14 says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden." A town built on a hill, not a candle held behind glass, not a light that requires the right conditions or the right audience or the right moment to be visible. A town. Something substantial, something built, something that has structure and permanence and presence, and built on a hill, meaning elevated by the very ground it stands on, visible not because it is straining to be seen, but because of where it was placed and what it was built from. You were placed, you were built, and the vivability that is coming in this next season of your life is not the result of self-promotion or platform strategy or being in the right place at the right time through fortunate accident. It is the result of what was constructed in you through every trial the angel walked you through, every rebuilding season that felt like loss but was actually elevation, every moment of being hidden that was actually preparation for the visibility that a town built on. A hill carries naturally and inevitably. The light that you carry is not something you manufactured. It was deposited in you by the one who called himself the light of the world, and then turned to the ones he had chosen and said, "And so are you. You carry what was given. You shine what was placed." And the people around you are responding to the origin of that light even when they cannot identify the source, because something in the human spirit recognizes the divine, even when the mind has no framework for what it is encountering. Right now, if you sense that the atmosphere around you has been changing, if you have noticed that people are responding to you differently, if there have been moments recently where you felt like something in the room shifted when you arrived and you did not know what to make of it, I want you to type these 4 words in the comments right now. Type, "I carry the light," not as a declaration of pride or superiority, but as an act of receiving what heaven has been saying about you since before you were born. Type it as a yes to the identity that the trials refined and the angel confirmed, and the rebuilding is established in you at a level that nothing in this world can reach or remove. I carry the light. Type it now and watch what that simple act of agreement does in your spirit over the next few hours. Because agreement is powerful. When you align your words with what heaven has already declared over your life, something moves, not metaphorically, not as a motivational concept. Something actually shifts in the spiritual architecture of your situation when you open your mouth and say yes to what God has said about you, even when the evidence around you is still catching up to the declaration. The people around you are sensing something different because something is different. The atmosphere is shifting because you are shifting. The relationships are changing because the version of you that is showing up now is not the same version that walked into the earlier trials. You have been rebuilt. You have been refined. You have been elevated by the very difficulties that were designed to eliminate you. And the light that was always in you is now burning with a clarity and a steadiness that comes only from having been through the fire and discovered that the fire could not put it out. And this matters not only for you, but for every person whose life will be touched by yours in this next season. There are people in your immediate circle right now who are in the middle of trials that your testimony will be the exact thing they need to survive. There are people coming into your life in the months ahead who will be drawn to you not by coincidence, but by assignment. People who need what the angel built in you through the seasons you survived. People who need to sit near someone who has been through the fire and come out of it carrying light rather than ash. Your survival was never only about you. Your rebuilding was never only for your benefit. The atmosphere shift that people around you are already sensing is the beginning of a ripple effect that extends far beyond the borders of your personal story into the lives of everyone your life will touch from this moment forward. The chosen one who was hidden in the trial is becoming visible in the testimony. The light that was being formed in the furnace is now being seen on the hill. And the angel that walked with you through every moment of the forming and the furnace and the rebuilding is still walking with you now, into the visibility, into the impact, into the season where everything that was built in the dark begins to shine in the open, in ways that neither you nor the people watching will be able to fully explain. You are not the same person you were when this journey began, and the world around you is beginning to feel the difference. There is a door in front of you that has been closed for longer than you have wanted to admit. Not locked in the sense of permanently sealed, not shut in the sense of a final answer from heaven about what is and is not possible for your life, but closed in the sense of not yet, in the sense of the appointed time has not arrived, in the sense of what is behind this door requires a version of you that was still being built when you first stood here and knocked. You have knocked on this door before, more than once. You have knocked with faith, and you have knocked with desperation imprisoned. And you have knocked with the kind of quiet persistence that does not make noise, but does not stop either. The kind of knocking that looks from the outside like simply continuing to show up even when the door does not move. And there have been seasons where you step back from the door entirely, not because you stopped believing it would open, but because standing in front of a closed door for too long does something to a person that they have to be careful about. It begins to redefine the door as a wall. It begins to rewrite the promise as a misunderstanding. It begins to suggest that perhaps this particular entrance was never meant for you at all. But the angel walking with you through every trial has been standing at that door with you. And what you could not see from your side of it is what has been happening on the other side. Because while you were waiting, while you were doing the interior work that the waiting required, while you were being rebuilt and refined and elevated by the very seasons that felt most like delay, the other side of that door was being prepared. The room behind it was being arranged. The people who needed to be in position were being moved into position. The circumstances that needed to align were being aligned by a hand that works across timelines that your natural perception cannot access. Heaven has never been late. Heaven operates on a precision that makes human timing look approximate at best. And the door that has been closed in front of you has been closed, not because the answer is no, but because everything that needed to be ready on the other side of it was not yet ready. You were not yet ready. The room was not yet ready. The season was not yet ready. And a premature opening would have released you into a space that could not yet hold the fullness of what heaven intends for your life in that next chapter. But something has shifted. Something in the spiritual architecture of this season has changed in ways that are not yet fully visible to your natural eyes, but that the angel besides already registered. The preparation on the other side of the door is reaching completion. The alignment that has been in process is approaching the moment of convergence, and the version of you that is standing in front of that door right now, rebuilt and refined and carrying the interior depth that the trials produced, is closer to being the version of you that the room on the other side was designed for than you have ever been before. This is not a feeling. This is not wishful thinking dressed up in spiritual language. This is the testimony of what heaven does for the ones it has chosen, and the ones it has walked through fire, and the ones whose prayers it has held in golden bowls, and whose answered seasons it has used as the very material from which the answer was being constructed all along. Think about the patterns of your own story. Think about the times in your past where a door you had given up on suddenly opened, where a season that had gone quiet for so long that you had almost stopped listening for movement suddenly erupted into breakthrough. where the thing you had held loosely, because holding it tightly had become too painful, was suddenly placed in your hands with a fullness that the tighter grip of your earlier season would never have been able to receive. You have seen this pattern before. You have lived inside its rhythm, and the rhythm is not random. The rhythm is the heartbeat of a God who does not forget and does not abandon, and does not let the appointed time pass without releasing what was held for it. The book of Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 says, "For the vision awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Though it linger. Those three words carry the weight of every season you have spent in front of a closed door. They acknowledge that the waiting is real. They do not minimize the ache of it or rush past the difficulty of remaining faithful to a promise that has not yet arrived in visible form. They sit with you in the lingering and say, "Yes, this is long. Yes, this has been harder than you expected. Yes, you have had to release this and pick it back up more times than you would have chosen." And then they say something extraordinary. "It will certainly come and will not delay." Not "it might come." Not "it will come if you are faithful enough or patient enough or spiritual enough." It will certainly come. The certainty is not contingent on your performance. The certainty is rooted in the nature of the one who spoke the vision into existence, the one who does not make promises carelessly, the one who does not assign purpose to a life and then abandon that assignment midway through the journey, the one who sent an angel to walk with you through every trial, precisely because the destination was always certain, and the journey required a companion who knew that certainty even in the moments when you could not feel it. And the second part of that verse carries something equally important. It will not delay, not in the sense that it will arrive on your preferred timeline, because the appointed time is determined by a wisdom that encompasses more than your personal situation, but in the sense that when the appointed moment arrives, there will be no hesitation on heaven's part, no last-minute reconsideration, no revision of the plan. The door will open with a speed and a completeness that will make the waiting feel, in retrospect, not like wasted time, but like the most necessary preparation of your entire life. You are in the final approach of a waiting season, not because this message is promising you an immediate and dramatic breakthrough, though heaven is entirely capable of that, but because everything that has been spoken over your life in this message, the angel walking with you, the protection that has been extended around you, the prayers that have been held in golden bowls, the rebuilding that has been happening in your spirit and your mind and your courage, the atmosphere shift that people around you are already sensing. All of it is the accumulated evidence of a life that has been in preparation for something that is now very close to its appointed time of release. The door is not a wall, it never was, and the knocking you have done on the other side of silence was never unanswered. It was received every time, it was held every time, and it has been accumulating on the other side of that door in ways that are about to become visible in your life with a suddenness that will catch even you off guard, because that is how heaven works when the appointed time arrives. Not gradually, not incrementally, with a fullness that arrives all at once and reorders everything around it. The angel that has been walking with you through every trial has also been walking with you toward this, toward the opening, toward the release, toward the moment when the door swings wide and what was held behind it pours out into your life and the lives of everyone connected to you with a generosity that reflects the character of the God who held it in trust until the fullness of time had done its complete work in you. You are not being delayed. You are being positioned. And the difference between those two experiences is everything. Because one is a story about loss, and the other is a story about preparation. And your story, chosen one, has always been a story about preparation for something that the world around you does not yet have the context to fully comprehend. The door is moving. The appointed time is close, and the angel beside you has never been more present than it is in this final stretch of the journey between the promise and its fulfillment. Stand, hold, and get ready. You were chosen before the world knew your name. And that is not a phrase designed to make you feel special in a hollow or sentimental way. It is a statement of origin. It is the foundational truth underneath everything that has been spoken over your life in this message. Underneath every trial the angel walked you through. Underneath every prayer held in golden bowls. Underneath every door that stayed closed until the appointed time. Underneath every moment of rebuilding and refining and expanding that the difficult seasons produced in you. Before any of it began, before the first trial arrived, before the first tear fell in the dark, before the first unanswered prayer left your lips, you were known. You were selected. You were assigned. And the assignment did not begin when you became aware of it. It began before the foundation of the world was laid. This is what makes your story different from a story of survival. Survival is about making it through. What heaven has been doing in your life is something categorically different from simply keeping you alive through difficult circumstances. Heaven has been fulfilling a purpose that was written before your birth, expressed through the specific shape of your life with all of its unexpected turns and apparent detours and seasons that looked like failure from the outside, but were functioning as formation on the inside. Every single thing that has happened to you, the beautiful and the brutal, the answered and the unanswered, the seasons of abundance and the seasons of profound lack, has been in service of a purpose that existed before you had a name. And the angel that was assigned to walk with you through every trial was not assigned reactively, as though heaven noticed you were struggling and dispatched some help. The angel was assigned proactively, before the trials were trials, before the storms were storms, before any of the experiences that would shape and test, and ultimately form you into the person you are right now, had begun to unfold. The angel knew the journey before you took the first step, and it has been walking beside you, with the full knowledge of every step that was coming, every valley that lay ahead, every fire you would need to walk through, and every door you would need to wait in front of, and every morning that would arrive after a night that felt permanent. That kind of companionship is not accidental. It is covenantal. It is the expression of a God who does not send chosen ones into the world unaccompanied and then observe from a distance to see how they manage. It is the expression of a God who says, before you go, know this, you will not go alone, not through the water, not through the fire, not through the wilderness, not through the waiting, not through the rebuilding, not through any of it. I will command my angels concerning you, and they will not leave. Before we reach the final word of this message, I want to pray over you, not as a ritual, not as a formality, but because there are things that can only be released through prayer, things that the spoken word alone cannot fully carry, things that need to be lifted from the space between where you are and where heaven is calling you, and placed directly into the hands of the one who assigned the angel to your side before the world began. So if you are willing, receive this now. Father, the one listening to this message right now was not brought here by accident. You arranged this moment before they were born, and you know exactly what they have been carrying into it. You know the weight of the unanswered prayers. You know the name of the door they have been standing in front of. You know the depth of the rebuilding that has been happening in them and the courage that has been built under the weight of the seasons they survived. And you know what is on the other side of the threshold they are standing at right now. I ask you to let them feel in this moment the presence of the angel you assigned to their life, not as a concept, as a reality. Let something in their spirit register the companionship that has been beside them through every trial and is beside them still. Let the prayers they have been carrying feel suddenly lighter, because they are remembering that those prayers are held in gold in your presence, and that the appointed time is closer than the waiting has made it feel. Let the door they have been standing in front of begin to move, and let them have the courage to step through it when it does, carrying everything that the trials built in them, and nothing of the fear that tried to convince them they were not enough for what was waiting on the other side. Let this be the season where the chosen one standing in this moment receives the fullness of what you prepared for them before the foundation of the world, in the name that is above every name. Amen. And now, chosen one, receive this final declaration over your life. You are not a person who merely survived. You are a person who was formed. There is a difference that is wider than language can fully contain, and you carry the evidence of it in the depth of your compassion, in the steadiness of your presence, in the courage that does not flinch the way it used to, because it has been through enough to know that it holds. You carry the evidence of the angel's companionship in every moment of impossible survival, in every morning that arrived after a night you peace were certain was permanent, in every door that opened exactly when the version of you standing in front of it was finally ready to walk through into the fullness of what was waiting. Your best days are not behind you. They are not even primarily ahead of you in some distant future that requires more waiting before it becomes accessible. They are being activated right now, in this moment of recognition, in this moment of receiving the truth that you were chosen before the world knew your name, and that the angel assigned to your life has never once taken its eyes off of you or loosened its position at your side. If the genius wave has been on your heart throughout this message, if the connection between what is happening in your interior and the brainwave frequencies that Dr. James Rivers spent 30 years researching has been resonating with something in your spirit, I want to gently remind you one final time that the link is in the pinned comment below and in the description of this video. 7 minutes a day, $39. 90 days guaranteed. One verified link in the pinned comment. It may be the practical tool that heaven placed at this exact intersection of your journey to open the channels through which everything being activated in this season flows most freely. Do not let fear of a small investment keep you standing outside a door that heaven is inviting you to walk through. This channel is no longer monetized through YouTube, but we have chosen to continue making these videos because we believe these messages need to keep reaching the right people at the right moment. Every word spoken in this message was prepared for someone specific, and that someone was you. If this content has been a companion to you in a hard season, if these words have walked alongside you the way the angel has walked alongside you, and if you want to help carry this message to another chosen one who is still in their wilderness season, waiting to hear that they are not alone, you can support this channel through the donate link in the pinned comment or in the description below. We are grateful for every act of support, every prayer offered for this ministry, and every share that carries this word further than our own reach can take it. Whatever you are able to give, it is received as a seed, and honored as something sacred. Right now, before this moment closes, press the like button as a declaration that this word landed somewhere real in you. Share this video with the person whose name arrived in your spirit during the prayer, because heaven did not bring their face to your mind without intention. Subscribe if you have not already, because the messages that are coming will go deeper still, and your spirit has already shown you today that it is hungry for exactly this kind of word. You were chosen before the world knew your name. The angel has been walking with you through every trial. The appointed time is close, the door is moving, and everything that was built in you through every season you survived is exactly what the next chapter of your life requires. Go forward, chosen one. Heaven goes with you, and you will never, not for a single step of the road that remains, walk alone. Beloved, before you close this video, take one breath and receive this final word into your spirit. You did not find this message. This message found you, and the God who arranged that is the same God who has been arranging every detail of your story since before the world began. You are seen, you are known, you are covered, and the angel walking with you through every trial is still walking, right now, into everything that comes next. If you are ready to step into the fullness of this season, type the words "I am ready" in the comments below. Let heaven see your yes. Let the community around you witness your declaration. And let this moment be the one you look back on as the day something shifted and never went back. We love you, we are praying for you, and we will see you in the next message.